have to interrupt again, because the strongest way of persuasive communication is not that you push information inside someone's brain, but you show people the platter and let people pull it in. And what she's brilliantly doing here is she says, ciao, 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 welcome by the breakdown video of the TEDx Talk of Juliëtte. As a speaker's coach, I trained her. This is the first time I'm gonna see it on video, and I'm gonna do a breakdown so you can all learn from it. Are you ready? Let's go. There we go.
Let me tell you a story about a tiny seed that was once full of life potential. One day it sprouted its leaves above the soil to absorb the sunlight that was essential. The little plant felt ready to discover the world, and that made it come alive. But that huge glass ceiling above it seemed like the wrong place to arrive.
All right, let's see what she's doing. She's opening, and somehow you're like, what is she saying? These sentences, like, what do they mean? But when you listen closely, you see it's a poem. And when the camera zooms out, you see that she's barefoot, which I think is absolutely incredible. It's not that I coach everybody to stand barefoot, but it really fits with her personality. And that's, I think, one great, like the most important factor of every great keynote, TEDx talk or conference talk, is that your authenticity shines through. So Juliëtte always liked to create poems, and she just likes to feel grounded. So why not? Let's continue, see where this poem is going.
The little plant met many new friends, but they all had to sit still in rows. They were expected to grow in the same way, but this little plant never got close. And when the plant got distracted by bugs and insects that would slow down its pace, they would spray it with some chemicals to keep producing red fruits without any taste. The nights felt like winter.
Ooh, another thing that I loved. I know Juliëtte practiced like thousands and thousands of times, out loud with pictures, everything to remember the speech. Right now you see in the first, minute, she wants to remember something. So she wrote stuff down on cards. Is that a bad thing? No, absolutely not. Can you be human on stage? Heck yeah. So just looking down to feel the confidence to remember is absolutely fine. Absolutely amazing.
And the little plant would dream about changing the world forever. But in the morning, it realized that in order to do so, you must be clever. They would not listen to its wishes or needs, no matter how hard it tried. Every day felt like a battle, and the little plant was slowly dying inside. This story isn't just about any plant. This story is about me growing up as a little girl.
This is interesting. She's creating a framework in the beginning, a framework that really fits her. It's spoken word, the language makes a lot of sense, and then she says, this was me. So she uses this poem as a metaphor for the starting point of her talk. Often public speakers, coaches, or in any trainings you hear, you have to open fun, start with an anecdote, start with a nice news fact. In reality, you just want to make the attention, and how you do it is completely up to you. Juliëtte here chose a method that's really close to her, which I think is very, very powerful. Some behind the scenes that I want to share as well is that first she wanted to have a whole circus on the stage. She wanted to have real plans. She wanted to create all these things. And I'm very curious. Let's go back there at the end. If you think this could have benefited, because obviously it's not there right now, or that without all these props, she's actually really owning it from her voice alone. Let's continue.
Just like many children today. At this moment, 262 million children worldwide are growing up in an unsustainable education system that has expired long ago. A system that is not teaching children what they truly need or what nurtures them to be themselves. And there's something I want to share with you that I bet they did not teach you in history class. You see, the true meaning of the word school got lost in translation and originates from this beautiful Greek word skole, which means free time. School was once a place where you got to explore the things you love doing and find your own truth. And school never meant it to be a place where you had to live up to cultural or adult expectations or imprison your brain into a fixed mindset. And if we even go further back into history, we find that hunter-gatherer children would roam around freely all day without much intervention.
What she's doing here is absolutely brilliant, because how she starts is that she starts with a poem. She starts with a poem because it feels really real to her and she can convey her message. At the same time, I'm absolutely sure that not 100% of the audience thinks this is a really nice way to start. It maybe sounds a bit fuzzy for some people. And what she's doing now is she's backing that up with some facts from history. Stuff that's real, stuff that rational people can grab, embrace, and open their perspective of listening to all the next stuff that she is going to say. So with these two things combined, she is combining more, or she's talking to more people, different kind of people, to still convey her message. So rational and emotional is awesomely combined here.
And I don't know about you, but I don't remember having any free time in school to do the things I really love doing. Like playing outside with my friends, writing a poem, or starting my next business idea for a better world. When I look at schools, I see factories and monoculture farms that replace children's trust in nature for endless economic growth at the expenses of the earth and the expenses of their happiness and health. Unconsciously, school is teaching us to work against nature, which then means that we actually learn and teach them to work against ourselves. Because in the end, we are nature. And we already see this resulting in the shocking fact that the average adult today in this country is consuming up to 3.3 Earths within a growing burnout pandemic.
Okay, what do I see right here? The stuff that she told before is average and abstract, which is nice to listen to because we understand what they're saying. We cannot yet grasp the concept completely as human beings because we cannot visualize it in front of us. What she's doing now, using a metaphor of 3.5 Earths per human, we can see, even like simulated with the picture behind her, that it's too much. We see it, we visualize it. If we visualize it, it keeps longer in our attention or in our memory. So the combination of this abstract way of thinking, which is nice to say, but it really wants to be backed up by some specific visuals, which is doing here great.
This means that if you or I would birth a child into today's world, it would be born with this huge depth that isn't theirs. And this keeps me up at night, knowing that if we would compare the lifespan of the earth to our human existence, humans have only been around for just 3 seconds. And we have made such a mess. And although we see great innovation...
Just a small thing that I want to say. She does it here again, right? We're here for 3 seconds. She could have said, we're here not for a long time. But you want to make it specific. You want to make it tangible. You want people to see it in front of them.
Happening in all areas of our lives, like meat made from plants, or airplanes flying on algae. Schools, on the other hand, haven't changed much in the past 100 years. And this raises the question, Why do we still expect children to adapt to an unsustainable education system, while the education system itself fails to adapt and is stuck in an old narrative? The stories we are told in school become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I love this sentence, and I told Juliëtte so many times, because she started with a poem, right? Now she says, or what did she say literally? We're changing the narrative and then the story we tell ourselves. So she's using this language that can become a common thread throughout the whole talk, which is actually based on education. So the stuff that she's doing is she's really trying to convey a message while she uses language to back it up, while she's using examples to illustrate. So let's dive in together even more. This is fun.
And it shapes our reality in the way we sleep, the way we eat, the way we behave, the way we transport ourselves. I mean, I think we can all agree on the fact that plastic does not end up in the ocean by itself. The soil under our feet is not mysteriously degrading on its own. Bees don't commit suicide. And for sure, air pollution is not created by trees.
I have to interrupt again, guys. Bees don't die from suicide. Like, she just points out 4 extremely specific examples why this is an urgent problem. Why this is an urgent cause that needs to be fixed. And I know for a fact, because I started with her all at the beginning. First she had sentences like, this is a really big problem that drastically needs improvement, or something like this. And we really worked upon specific examples. Bees don't create suicide. We can see that in front of our eyes. It makes so much sense, while with an example, she says exactly what she wants to say without saying it. And because she gives these examples first, again, I iterate upon this because it's so important. You can see stuff in front of you. You see a bee committing suicide. You can see that it's a specific situation. And second of all, she lets our creative mind think for ourselves. What if she would say, environment is like climate change is a big problem. Education, we don't do that right well. We have to change it like this. Then she literally says, guys, this is the problem and this is how we have to solve it. But what she's doing now is she's conveying an idea we're spreading. So you, in your mind, still have the creative freedom to create your own neurological pathways inside of your mind. Let's continue.
Climate change is not a climate problem. It is a civil problem, and it all starts with the way we learn. Because the way we learn defines the way we live. And this is also the good news. Because I think we can also agree on the fact that we can all be part of the problem, or we can choose to be part of the solution.
Another interruption for the people who are like, okay, how do you structure such a talk? You always want to have a bit of a clear structure that's understandable for the audience to follow. What Juliëtte did is now she took around 6 minutes, around half of the time of her talk, to emphasize the problem, why it's so important, why it's so urgent, and why she is so committed to work towards it. She took half of the time. Now she's at the stage of the bridge, where she's like, okay, this is a big problem, but there's also a solution. You don't want this problem to face 1 minute and only talk about the solution. Why? Because people wanted to be reminded of the problem first. We need to feel the problem before we're open to the solution. And the other side applies as well. If we only talk about the problem, then people feel that the urgency is there. They just don't know how to solve it. So she's doing an amazing job, taking about half of the time. And now she has a very clear bridge while she will dive into the solution. So let's watch it.
And luckily for me, Besides growing up with dyslexia, struggling in school and sometimes worrying about the world, I also self-diagnosed myself with a superpower. I call it chronicle optimism. Because from a young age, I felt connected to nature and I wanted to be a part of it. And I knew that I had to create my own story, no matter what people told me I was or wasn't. I was always asking these uncomfortable questions to adults, like, why do we flush drinking water to the toilet? Or why do we eat meat? But I was always left without a satisfying answer. So I learned young that if I wanted to change the world, I shouldn't be waiting for adults to do it. I had to take matters into my own hands. And out of the 1,000 memories, there's one I want to share. I was about 5 years old and...
All right, this is a moment of interruption. What she's doing here, she's making it very personal. And what is almost the best way to really get the audience's attention without just standing there as a person who talks, like you are talking, what we started with. She started with a poem, she started barefoot, she started as herself. If I would have conveyed the same idea, I would have done it in a completely different way, because that's what makes me me. But this is what makes Juliëtte Juliëtte. So why not tell something about yourself to be more human on stage, to make a point through a personal story? So let's listen to it.
It was the beginning of spring, and rain was pouring down from the sky. And from my window, I saw all these snails crawling over the sidewalk in front of our house. This is what snails do, right? So I didn't even bother to grab my raincoat, and I ran outside and I gathered all my friends and asked them if they would help me to pick up the snails and put them in our garden. Because I thought it would be so sad if they would get stepped on and die. So within minutes, our garden turned into a snail wildlife park with hundreds of snails eating my mother's plants. It were those lessons and experience that I learned outside of school that I valued the most and helped me to stay in love with life.
All right, so she's telling this snail story. And this is a rhetorical question because you cannot answer it right now. You can answer it in the comments down below though. Can you see the snail park in front of you? If I would answer it for myself, I would say yes. Oh, Siri is also... I would say yes, because it's so tangible and specific. She's saying that it's raining. She's painting the picture. Again, guys, we want to paint the picture in people's brain. Because once they see a picture, they can hear, feel, sense, smell... be there with you, then the way our brain stores our information is way more beneficial for long-term memory. So she did a great job here. And you can answer this question in the comments below. Did you see this story in front of you?
In fact, a few years ago, I fell in love again, and that changed my life forever. I found myself in the middle of the Indonesian jungle. And from the distance, I heard this beautiful traditional gamelan music and the sound of laughing children. Between the tropical trees, a surreal, sustainable bamboo school unfolded itself. And I felt my inner child jumping up and down from excitement. Because everywhere I looked, I saw young changemakers working together on joint projects to create a better world. In the workshop, there were 2 boys crafting a bicycle made from local...
All right, she's doing it again. She's crafting the situation. She's painting the picture inside of your brain, even with the picture behind you. What I want to stress out here is the way she speaks. Juliëtte has a very nice voice to listen to naturally. But it can also reflect in a situation where the tone can be a bit monotone, or when the speed can be a bit the same. And what she's doing great here is that she's jumping up and down, like she's talking faster when she's talking about excitement, while when she's talking about urgency or importance, she slows down. You can rewatch it in the beginning. She slows down a bit more. And right now she really speeds up her talk, which is a great way to create emotional contrast. And if you watch some more videos of me, you know that emotional contrast is very, very important, because people need that in order to be connected to what you're saying and keep interested in what you're saying.
Cool bamboo and recycled materials. And in a permaculture garden, there were children harvesting and preparing their own school lunches. And on this huge stage, bamboo stage, bigger than this one, there were young children presenting their mind-blowing solutions to real big world problems. It was everything I dreamed of when I was a little girl. And it was everything that I would love to create for my future children and children around the world. Every cell in my body aligned to the idea that education is the seed of change. And from that day forward, I've put all my efforts in regenerating the education system and starting a school movement called Now School. And my dream grew into a dream of many, because today a beautiful community, I know they're here as well, all are working together on starting the first school in the Netherlands. A school with the aim of nurturing the interconnection between children and nature that is already there. So, I think it's a no-brainer if I tell you that we can reverse climate change to the way we educate the next generation. And that the key to a living, healthy, thriving planet is hidden in the way we design schools.
What she's doing here, and you hear that sometimes, like, what is the end result that you want as a speaker? And what is your main message? And make sure your main message is understood throughout your whole talk. And what she's doing amazingly here is she's basically framing the conclusion for you to absorb in your mind without pointing the finger. She's basically summarizing what she's just has said. She started with defining the problem, then she started to sharing the opportunity, and now she's slowly starting into the solution part, what she's actually doing. And she is reiterating that message with one really strong sentence right here.
But we all been through the same education system. So our only limitation is our own imagination. I think we should dream again like we did when we were children. So allow me to plant a new seed into your inner soil. A seed of the future that you can water, give sunlight.
I have to interrupt again, because the strongest way of persuasive communication is not that you push information inside someone's brain, but you show people the platter and let people pull it in. And what she's brilliantly doing here is, she says, do you allow me to plant the new seed in you? And that sentence on its own is brilliant, because you're asking permission without having a conversation. But when you ask permission, the brain automatically answers that question as more open to the end. She says planting a seed, which is a metaphor, so you can see it in front of you, and it ties back to what she's already told before. And now when the audience is literally open, she's gonna bring the solution even more forward without, again, pointing the finger.
And nurture and let it grow into something bigger, like change. It's a seed of the future, written in a poem. Thanks to our efforts, children were free to learn and play. A loving community of parents and teachers listened to what they had to say. Happiness and health became the new norm, because politicians change the rules and transform. The earth was their classroom full of lessons and answers to be found. And nature their biggest teacher if you will listen and look around. They all encouraged each other to make mistakes because they understood that failing is what it takes. They adapted their inner rhythm to the outer seasons of change, and the dance between nature and human became an equal exchange. In a circle, they shared old indigenous wisdom and mixed them with new ideas. And they even had a toilet that separated poopies and pees. They learned that in nature, waste does not exist if you give it new meaning, and that we can all help the planet in the process of healing. The soil came to life because they planted seeds here and there, and as a reward, the earth thanked them with fresh water and clean air. Children grew up side by side with food and trees, and everywhere you looked, you saw animals and humming bees. A whole generation of holistic thinkers and doers took care of their home, and they passed on the earth to their children as the start of a new poem.
All right, what I want to say about this part is 3 things. First of all, she's doing a poem again, something that she did in the beginning. So as an audience, knowing that a TEDx takes around 12 to 18 minutes, you know that this is the end. There's nothing worse than ending a talk with, "This was the end," and you had to say it for people to understand. So she is using that anchor from the beginning to make a statement that it's going to be the end. Second of all, she did a poem concluding everything she said. So she's iterating it all. She's planting the seed literally inside of you. And third of all, is this poem the best end and the best beginning? And the truth is, you can argue about this. Because some people might say, "Wow, this is the most unique thing I've ever seen. This is absolutely amazing. This is brilliant." Some other people might say, "Well, a poem, what was now exactly the point? Was it really a strong end?" That could be an opinion as well. And the truth is, and Juliëtte and I have been going back and forth on the beginning and on the end, because it's actually really crucial, right? But what is even more crucial, and that's where I started this video as well, is that you want to shine your authentic self. You want to be there on stage, being completely you, and make the most impact as you. And for Juliëtte, this was such a great way to convey her idea, such a great way to put all her creative thinking inside of her TEDx talk, that it was a no-brainer to choose for this way of communicating. Then where I want to finish up with is something that I said in the beginning, and that is, did it make sense for her not to bring an actual tree on stage? And also with that you can argue. There's so many opinions about bringing props, about using slides, about all these things. But if you want my opinion, I think that Juliëtte as a person, standing there barefoot because it's her, it's more than enough to make her point. And I think with everything she would have added, like all these trees and this circus, while I also like sometimes these kind of showish performance, it would have distracted from her story, because her story was perfect as she told it. Alright, that was the full breakdown of the TEDx of Juliëtte, what I wished I learned in school. I've got a question for you that I would love for you to put down in the comments, and that is 1. What was your biggest breakthrough, takeaway or lesson? Something that you learned that you can apply later on. And second of all, what should be the video that I break down next? Put it in the comments. It can be a name, it can be a link. I will listen to it and break it down next time. If you like this video, make sure you get a thumbs up and you subscribe to the channel, because there's more learning stuff to come. And isn't that why you're here? Alright, see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.